you tired of being in a cycle that's more negative than it is positive in majority of the cycle itself, or maybe you just like a middle class, low class human being, then you probably would rather be out of the cycle that you currently in. It's a lot of, you know, things out there that like try to tell people how to end cycles, and they're usually some extravagant or like super like hard mental tasks to do. And sometimes we got to be realistic with ourselves about what we're even capable of, you know what I'm saying, or like what is achievable for us, you know what I'm saying, what's like not so mentally straining. And I think that the best way to end the cycle is to slowly exit the cycle rather than trying to quickly burst your way out of it. You know, it's just that a slow exit from a cycle requires a lot of patience and natural persistence, you know, because if something like an object is going in a circle like this and you try to like really strongly throw that object out of gravity, and the push out of the center of gravity isn't strong enough, then it's actually going to snap back into the center of gravity really hard, which will reduce its energy to try and push itself back out again. So, in our sense, that analogy means that if you're in a cycle and you try to instantaneously go really hard out of being in that cycle, the pull to come back into it is going to hit you really hard, and you might not be able to withstand it. And if you fall for it, you'll snap back into it really hard also, which will lower your energy and your confidence to try and exit the cycle again, you know, which just prolongs the overall process of ending that cycle. However, if you are going in a circle like this, and each time you just went a little further and a little further and a little further and a little further, over time, the pull of gravity, you'll get used to uh, being in a lesser pull, you know? So let's say there's just something like a relationship you keep going back to. If you get a little bit distant, then you separate a little bit longer, and you separate a little bit longer. Just slowly, you get used to certain things not being so consistent with this person. Maybe you first stop talking to them every day, then you stop going out with them every other day, you know, but you don't just abruptly stop. You just take your time with it. Eventually, you'll get used to each new level and each new step of separation, and by the time you get to the last one, you won't even have noticed, you know. But if you just instantly try to go away, you're probably going to go back really hard, and that's going to ruin your confidence to try and change again, you know. So anything, including like the person you want to be, you know, the person you are is a center of gravity that you are naturally going to be very attached to, especially those deep parts of you that have been around a long time. The person you want to be is its own center of gravity that's also pulling you. You know, don't try to run towards this one because you're being pulled backwards, you know, and the other center of gravity is quite far away. So the pull of it isn't as strong as the pull from the center of gravity you don't want to be in anymore. You know, you have to slowly exit the cycle you're in, which means that you're still going to be in the cycle as you're exiting it. Like, if there's a cycle of you're having a good time with someone, you are distant for a month or two, then you get back, you know, with them for 2 or 3 months, and then something bad happens, and then you're back cool again. You're going to continue being in that cycle, but the time periods are just going to be lesser and lesser. You know, the significance of each part is going to be lesser and lesser. It's going to start affecting you less and less, and they're going to go by quicker and quicker until eventually you notice that they're not happening, or maybe only two of them are happening at a time, you know, and it's being replaced with other cycles, you know, certain parts of that cycle no longer happen, and that's replaced with a different part of the cycle. You know, maybe that new part is you spending time with yourself or doing something productive that replaced an original part of the cycle of a toxic relationship. I hope I'm making sense here. I could not be. Like, it makes sense in my head, and that's the best way I can explain it, but I can understand if it's not really making much sense to people and it's confusing, especially if you don't consider yourself to be in a cycle that you don't want to be in. Some of us are in positive cycles, which is great, and you should continue to do that. And some people live life so spontaneously that they're not in one at all. You know what I mean? But there's nothing worse than being in a cycle that's become stale. Forget negative. Some cycles are negative, but they're not stale. They're still really potent, and people aren't ready to leave them yet. That's what happens in toxic relationships that people don't want to leave. It's usually a really potent cycle. People get addicted to it because the sensations, even though they're not good, they're really strong. And you start to have an urge to feel such strong emotions. People would rather feel really deep negative sensations than they would very light positive sensations. But in order to get deep positive sensations, you have to adjust to preferring positive sensations in general. But none of this matters if you don't like act on it and actively practice it. You don't have to get out of the negative addictions and sensations immediately. Just practice the positive ones. And over time, you'll practice so many more positive ones that they'll overtake all the negative ones. Also, the negative ones, when you do them, don't get discouraged and fall right back into it. You know what I'm saying? Don't let it break down your self-esteem. Just accept them as a part of your character that eventually probably won't be a part of your character. Just accept it for what it is and continue doing your cycle that originally might have been 80% negative, 20% positive, and slowly the positivity percentage is increasing. It's not going to happen overnight, guys. So keep doing your positive practices that are in line with the person you want to be. That'll draw you towards that positive center of gravity, and avoid, the negative ones, but don't force your way out of them. Like, don't try too hard. That's just going to pull you deeper. Don't try too hard to leave something. You have to kind of sneak your way out of it, like slowly and slowly, very subtly. And then one day, it's easy to back out. In fact, you'll sneak out so much that the negative center of gravity will quit and not want to pull you in no more, because like you're not giving it no energy to use against you. The negative center of gravity could be a human being, guys. It could be a human being. It could be a substance. It could be a way of life. And the positive center of gravity can be whatever you want it to be. So yeah,